What's going on, people? Your boy Mike Roach is in the building, along with some special guests who I'll get to in a second. Now, this is the first time a collaboration of this kind has happened. Now, if you're in the GTA, you probably know my face and obviously the one and only Luca Rosano. So what up to the GTA, the Greater Toronto Area, all of Canada and beyond. And before we get to our special guest, to break down a season preview for the Toronto Raptors, my guy, Luca Rosano. What is popping, my friend?
What's going on, Mike and company? Great to have all of us in here doing this, and I'm excited to break down, the Raptors season and what to expect. They're obviously going to look a lot different than they did last season. I mean, I'm still trying to get over adjusting to seeing Kyle Lowry in a Miami Heat jersey, so after I get over that, we'll get into the new season. But I appreciate you having me back on your show, man.
Absolutely. Anytime, man. I'm glad to be doing this with you. So let's just get right into this. First up, Max Van Auken of the Max Van Auken, the MVP podcast. He is the host of that. He is an Orlando Magic media member, a radio personality, and I believe a contributor for Sports Talk 2319, aren't you?
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you guys for having me. Yep. That guy right there, Sports Talk 2319, and just playing a role in the bigger picture. So I appreciate you guys having me.
Absolutely. And the one and only former NCAA standout, former pro hooper, host of the One of One podcast, owner of Sports Talk 2319, NCAA NBA prospect specialist. I would give you more, but this is only a 40-minute program, okay? The one and only RASHAD PHILLIPS. RASHAD, what's going on, my brother?
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it, fellas. And don't let Max downplay you. He does way more for Sports Talk 2319 than he lets off.
Listen, Max is on his way. I've been watching all of his content. One day I see him with Joy Taylor. The other day I see him with Brendan Hay. I can't keep up. Can't keep up at this point. I'm seeing you doing radio. I'm seeing you all over the place, man. So
everywhere.
Shout out to Max. You're the man. You're going ham right now online, and I'm loving it.
I appreciate it. I really do.
And my boy Luca. Luca, you're everywhere as well, man.
Right.
You're everywhere as well. You're all over YouTube. You're going crazy on TikTok.
I'm just trying to get up there in the same stature of the gentleman in this room. But, I'm just grinding. I'm just grinding every day. That's all I can do. We're in the content business, so we got to just keep giving it 100% at all times, right?
All right, so let's get right into this. Guys, we are going to dissect the Toronto Raptors. And last season was not a pretty one. Last season was not a pretty one for the Raptors. For almost the first time in a decade, they did not manage to reach the NBA playoffs. Kyle Lowry, as you mentioned before, Luca, is no longer a Toronto Raptor. He is looked at by, I would say, a majority of people as the greatest Raptor of all time. I don't think there is really a debate there. Not just because of his production and his numbers, but his heart and soul, the way he plays defense, the way he leads the rest of the guys around him, just the impact that he makes on the court. It is unquestionable to me that anybody even comes close. I mean, you have guys like Kawhi who are probably, the most skilled, and Vince Carter, who I would say is the most talented. But overall, when you look at the impact and what this man has done on a basketball court, Kyle Lowry is definitely the one, and he is now a part of the Miami Heat. So before we even get started on this show, Luca, what do you think is the biggest difference between a Kyle Lowry-led Raptors team and just him not being here?
Yeah, I mean, it was the impact, Mike. You hit on the head. He was the heart and soul of this team. Like, every time the Raptors would need, a bucket, a big play, a guy that would take a charge, Kyle Lowry was there. He was the glue. And, he built that leadership where he was the leader in the locker room. He was that loud voice that got this group going whenever they needed to get in check. So now with him gone, it'll be interesting to see who can step in to not replace his impact, but at least try to do a good enough job to keep the Raptors in check when they do face adversity, especially towards the end of games. We saw last year, Mike. I mean, how many times do the Raptors get stagnant towards the end or just sloppy with their offense and even defensive approach? I think that guy could be, Fred VanVleet. He's going to have a big season ahead of him. The keys to the car are in his hands, and he's ready for it. He's saying all the right things. He's a hard worker. I had a chance to interview him a couple years ago. He's going to bring it every single night. I'll ask you, RASHAD, first. Who do you think will need to make the biggest impact for the Raptors with Kyle Lowry out? Before we continue on with the show, I do want to quickly mention that today's video is sponsored by Manscaped. Autumn is in the air, the pumpkins are in the patch, and our friends at Manscaped are here to make sure you don't carve your pants pumpkins when you're grooming, if you know what I'm saying. Make sure you're keeping things fresh this fall with the leaders in male grooming and their brand new 4th generation performance package. Boys, get ready for a cuffing season like no other. Ready to take the leap into fall with Manscaped? Well, now you can join the 2 million men worldwide using Manscaped by going to manscaped.com for 20% off plus free shipping with promo code LUCA3. It's time to bundle up with the Manscaped Performance Package 4.0. Inside this package, you'll find their Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, weed whacker, ear and nose hair trimmer, crop preserver ball deodorant, crop reviver toner, performance boxers briefs, and a travel bag to hold your goodies. So get 20% off plus free shipping right now with promo code LUCA3 over at manscaped.com.
I really think that it has to be Pascal. I think last season, because of he had a down year, a year that he would like to erase. And again, when you're making that type of money, and the way we've been able to see him perform in the past postseasons, I think he's the guy that needs to step up into that star tier. Fred VanVleet will continue to always do what he does, and that's make big plays, make big shots, defend on the other end. But when it comes to that one guy, we're going to need Pascal to really step up to the plate the same way Kawhi did when he arrived in Toronto. He has to be the guy that everything goes through. There's no way around that.
Do you believe, actually, you know what? I'm going to come back to that question because it's going to be a loaded one for you, RASHAD. Now, Max, as a guy who is a media member for the Orlando Magic, the Raptors are up on the board for the number 4 pick during the draft. Most people did not expect them to take Scottie Barnes. They expected them to go with Suggs. What was your thought when that happened? And do you believe the Raptors made the right decision?
Right. That was the pick that set the tone for the rest of the draft. We were covering on SUV TV. And when that happened, the whole room just got silent. Like, that's what made the rest of the draft very creative and unpredictable. And Masai Ujiri is a very aggressive type of president. And so he will always take the risk for the greater reward. And I believe that's what he did. So we all expected Jalen Suggs to be that pick. But because obviously if Lowry's leaving and to have that type of reinsurance or that insurance, but I believe he made the right pick with Scottie, because Scottie in a positionless league is going to give you those type of solutions. We all know about the East and the way the talent's displaced right now with the wings. You got the Tatums, you got the Kevin Durant's. The list goes on and on. So you need somebody that can play with an endless motor, somebody that's versatile and positionless. And I think he has he has a really good reward, a higher end reward. So I believe Masai Ujiri took a risk, and he's willing to play that because aggressive wins. He took a 1-year rental with Kawhi. I'm not saying Scottie Barnes is Kawhi Leonard, but what I'm saying is he took a risk, and a lot of people may not have thought that was the right move because of obviously the risk, but the reward was worth it. And I think that's what he did here. So I think he made the right move.
RASHAD, I want to get back to you for a second because you did mention Pascal Siakam, and he has to be that guy. In your estimation, from what you've seen thus far from his career, and I want to mention this part too, because especially in Toronto, I don't know about beyond, you guys can give me your take on this, but in Toronto, a lot of the fans here have been really harsh with Pascal Siakam with his performance these last couple years. I'm urging people for patience because people are basing his performance, not only this past year, but the year before when he was in the bubble. They're basing his performance based on what he did in the lineup when he was playing with Kawhi Leonard. That's what really made him his money. But you can do certain things in a lineup when the defense is primarily focused on a different player, which opens it up a little bit for him. Do you believe Pascal Siakam is a guy who can take his game to a higher level than it is right now?
See, here's the thing, and that's a great assessment. Pascal Siakam fits in that Paul George tier type of storyline, right? That same question can be asked for Paul George. Like, can he be the #1 guy for your team? And that's the challenge that Pascal has. So I'm banking that he will, because I understand the circle that he's surrounded with. These players, don't let it fool you. They read what us guys say. They read the tweets. They know their narratives. They know what's going on. And trust me, that's been in the back of his mind for the last 2 years. So I think he's going to come out this season, and I think he's going to show people that he can be that #1 guy and not that, I want to say 1B, because Kawhi was the 1A, Pascal was the 1B. What you guys want in Toronto is for him to be 1A. Mm-hmm. So he fits under that Paul George tier.
Yeah, and I do want to mention this. A lot of people forget before, the pandemic hit, Siakam was playing like an all-star. He made the all-star team. He was putting up his career numbers. And then I don't know if it was a psychological thing. Rashad, you know this with players. Sometimes they can get in their own head. But it just seemed to me that psychologically, he hasn't been the same since we went into that bubble. And then since the Raptors played last season, not in front of their home crowd in Tampa. So how much do you think even just coming home in front of that regular home crowd and, playing at the Scotiabank Arena is going to help Siakam ease back into playing how he was playing before?
Comfortability is everything. So being able to sleep in your own bed, in your own home, be in your own surroundings, again, definitely helps the psyche. And to Pascal's defense, I think there was a lot of factors that got in the way and took away from how he truly plays. And so that's why I believe this season will be the year that he gets back to being that star, because he'll never be a superstar. So you Raptors people have to understand, there's a difference between a superstar and a star.
Agreed.
There's a big difference there. Okay. So you guys don't have any superstars, but Pascal can be a star. And Fred VanVleet is a great player. So you got superstar, star, great player, good player, average player. Like, that's kind of the pecking order in the NBA. So you guys have a star with Pascal. He just has to get it together.
So now, with that being said, Max, when you hear the difference between great player, star, superstar, in your head, where do you believe OG Anunoby is right now, and what do you think he can be? Because he is a vet now. He is a vet now, and at some point, you would like to try and see him get to that next tier of player. Where do you see him, or what do you see him becoming?
I think he's a good player, and I think he has room for improvement because of the situation. So obviously, I did a little bit of research, and I think you guys were 19th when it comes to offensive ranking, like points. So you guys need a little bit more points. And obviously with Lowry leading the situation, that's going to give him an opportunity to play and fill a bigger role. And so with that opportunity, it's all about expectations and opportunity. So in his situation, I think he'll have a greater chance night in and night out to elevate to that next tier. I'm not saying he's going to be a star or a superstar, but that's not necessarily what you guys need. And I think if you could just have him elevate his game, I think it was 12 points a game. If he can get a little bit of a jump and play that more consistent role in the offensive end, you could see that leap.
Luca, let me go here with you quickly too, before you jump in and ask the next question. But with OG Anunoby, what part is most frustrating for you to watch sometimes from an offensive standpoint? Because I feel like over time, his game hasn't really evolved from an offensive standpoint. His shooting is good. He is a good spot up shooter. He's a good catch and shoot shooter. But when it comes to making plays late, when it comes to his ball handling, being able to make moves off the dribble,
Decision making.
Yeah, decision making. I mean, at some point, you want to be able to catch the ball on the wing, get it in triple threat, being able to give 2 or 3 dribbles and get yourself to the basket. He's not consistent at being able to do that. I mean, if he's on an island by himself, I mean, good luck. It's probably going to be a shot being hoisted up because he's not great at getting himself into a mid-range position for a pull-up jumper or getting himself to the basket. But Luca, where do you see him needing to improve the most from an offensive standpoint?
Yeah, it's the consistency. Can the Raptors rely on him, more times than not to be able to produce offensively? Like we saw last season, OG actually impressed us. There was a stretch of games, Mike, you remember it as good as I do. OG was putting up 20 plus points per game. And we were looking at this guy like, wait, he has this in his offensive arsenal? Because we know what we're going to get from OG defensively. We saw from when he first came into the league, that playoff series against LeBron, playing great defense on him. But offensively, if he can, flirt with that consistency of putting up that 20 plus points per game, I think that was a big part of, turning heads here in Toronto. Him being able to hit the 3, like you said, he's not going to be able to create his own shot, but if he can consistently hit that jumper and, take what the defense gives him, I think OG can, take that next leap. I know he's a favorite to once again be considered a breakout player. Just because of, his work ethic and just because of what we saw from him. Like he impressed us too in that Celtics series in the bubble. I mean, he was a lot of the times the Raptors' best player on both sides during that series. So it's the consistency for me. Can OG continue to have that trajectory with his offense? And if you actually look at his career thus far, he's gone up offensively every single season. So can he keep that up going to this season, where he is going to have more of that offensive responsibility on his plate with Kyle gone and the Raptors needing, some more offensive firepower when needed?
Now, guys, this is where RASHAD is. I need you here, brother. I need you here. I need you here. Okay.
Yeah.
Max, I'm coming to you.
Okay.
But we need your position chart here. We're living in the Stone Ages.
I've been waiting for this.
Save us. Save us. Okay? Because really, no, seriously, I've been thinking about this for a very long time. And your position chart is taking us to the promised land.
Yeah.
It's taking us to the promised land.
We're going to get
because there's a lot of misinformation out here. And people out here sometimes are just talking and it's very confusing.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
I want to start off. There's 3 main players I want to speak about when it comes to this.
Mhm.
Pascal Siakam,
Yeah.
OG Anunoby, and Scottie Barnes. Okay? Let's go with the young guy first. Let's
Sure.
go with Scottie Barnes. Okay?
Sure.
First of all, I want you to break down your position chart
Okay.
for people who have not heard this before. Okay? Please break it down for us. And then when you break it down to us, let's get into Scottie Barnes.
Sure. To kind of speed it up, I appreciate that. I've been around basketball for 43 years. I'm 43 years old. I was born into the game. I'm a coach's son. So it's all I know, So for me, I've been raised around some of the greatest players. The first player I've ever evaluated, I was 7 years old. It was a 6'11" dude. He was left-handed, walked in my dad's gym. He was hitting threes all over the place. And I wrote down, he's going to be an NBA player. He ended up being the #1 pick, and his name was Derek Coleman.
Damn.
So for me, I've been around the game for so long. I've seen the Steve Smiths, the Chris Webbers, the Isaiah Thomas, and I was a pretty good player myself. So I've had the opportunity to really create a true updated version of what we have in basketball. So a small history lesson. Positions were given out in 1946. Guard, forward, center. 1946. And Hubie Brown, the great Hubie Brown, who we all love and admire.
Love
Hubie Brown. Love him to death. He added the point guard, the small forward, the power forward. He added that in like 1979. So he updated it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Here we are in 2021, almost 2022, and the positions haven't been updated. So it's probably time to update what it is. So here's what I've been able to do. I've been able to use the 5 positions: point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, center. And what I've been able to do is add additional fabric to each position. So the positions, the 5s don't change, they just have fabric to them now. So I've been able to add some fabric to the point guard, some fabric to the shooting guard, some fabric to the forward, some fabric to the bigs. So I've created traditional guard, which if you saw Lonzo Ball's interview today, he said, not me, he said that he's a traditional guard. That's a position that's on my metric. We have hybrid guard, which is what Steph Curry is. Damian Lillard's a hybrid guard. Guys that are super deadly, that play the game with a unique style. They're not point guards, they're not combo guards, they're not traditional guards, they're hybrid guards. Now you go to the other tree, which is the shooting guard tree, the small forward and the dual forward. The dual forward is like LeBron James, Luca, Giannis is a dual forward. Ben Simmons is a dual forward. Julius Randle, dual forward. So that's a forward tree. Then we go over to the big man tree, the hybrid post, which is guys like Kevin Garnett, Hakeem Olajuwon, Dennis Rodman. Those guys are hybrid posts. Then you got power forward, and then you move over to point center, which is a player like Jokic or Mark Gasol, guys that you can run your offense through. Vlade Divac. Those guys are point center. So when you talk about Scottie Barnes, where does he fit on that tree? Scottie Barnes fits as he's a hybrid post. He's a hybrid post. He's a lot like Draymond, which is a hybrid post. A player that can anchor your offense and defense through facilitation, through initiating and facilitating. And on the defensive side of the ball, they can obviously be your shutdown defender, your versatile guy that switches out on ball screens. So for an example, you got Fred VanVleet and you got Scottie Barnes on defense. And then you have the Celtics coming down the court with Marcus Smart and Robert Williams, and they go on the ball screen. VanVleet can say switch, and the hybrid post in Scottie Barnes can make it difficult for Marcus Smart. That's what makes him a hybrid. The definition of hybrid is gas and electric, the ability to be both, to be a hybrid. So when you look at Scottie Barnes, I think it was a phenomenal draft pick at 4, like Max said, because the way the NBA is played today, you need hybrid posts to switch out on all these wiggly scores. So that's what makes Scottie Barnes a fantastic pick in a hybrid post for the Toronto Raptors.
Where does Siakam fall under those evaluations?
He's a small forward. He's a small forward. I believe he is, again, like a Paul George. Like those guys are traditional small forwards. meaning that a small forward, the definition is really a bigger shooting guard with rebounding responsibilities. That's what a small forward is. So when you look at Siakam, he plays the position the right way. And again, we're looking for a great year for him. Now, when you look at Fred VanVleet, there's some hybrid guard in Fred, because he's not all the way your point guard. He's kind of a disruptor. He's kind of like, I just play the game and I take advantage of whatever the opportunity is. That's what a hybrid guard is. Hybrid guards are disruptors. Damian Lillard, disruptor. Steph Curry, disruptor. Jamal Murray, disruptor. Those guys are hybrid guards. They're not point guards. Kyrie Irving, hybrid, disruptor. So those are the kind of guys you got, Max.
Let me just piggyback or interject something. And I off of what you just said, because that was just phenomenal. It's the way you break down the game. I think people are expecting Siakam to be a dual forward. And that's where the problem is. Like you guys said, like he's
Mike, I think Mike wants him to be a dual forward, but I don't know.
He's not a dual forward. Not everybody can play that dual forward role, because we have not unrealistic, but not the right expectations for Siakam. That's not what he is. And so I think as we're expecting him to play a role that's not actually his position. And that's why we're getting disappointed with what we're seeing.
Okay.
So before you go, Mike, the people, the viewers that's watching this, the definition of a dual forward is maybe the most gaudy statistical position in all of basketball. They're the actual engine to your franchise. It's a very highly regarded, responsible position. And I know you Toronto folks want Siakam to be a dual forward. You guys want to put everything on his shoulders and say, take us home. But I just don't think that Siakam is a dual forward.
Yeah, no, I just don't see that. I just don't see it. I think you guys are 100% right here. 100%.
That was a
right
phenomenal breakdown. Like
Absolutely.
I just want the viewers to know, whether it's on Mike's podcast or my YouTube channel, we got great basketball minds breaking down the Raptors here. So
and listen,
what it is.
and this is what it's about, because, and this is what we're trying to show you, and this is why I picked these two guys, Luca, because you're not going to find this anywhere else.
No.
That's the whole point, because we're trying to give you information that is accurate. That is the whole point. Accurate information matters. You don't just want to have an episode of this magnitude breaking down players in a season preview without having the most accurate information possible, because it's like you're saying, and Matt said it perfectly, there are many people here who expect that. Many people who expect that. So now when the season starts and that's not what comes to fruition, now everybody's dropping F-bombs on Twitter saying what the French toast is going on here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we're trying to clear that up. Now Max, I want to get to you, and now Luca, I want you to follow after. Which offseason signing do you believe is going to be really helpful for the Raptors? Maybe one that's under the radar. Even though you can mention Goran Dragic as well, even though he came in an acquisition, Precious Otrua as well. But we do have, Gary Trent Jr. is back for his first full season. You have a guy in, did I mention Kem Birch? He just came from Orlando, and he played really well after he was brought in. Who is that guy? You have a guy like Chris Boucher who does some things really well. He's a very good player as well. What do you see, Max?
I think Trent will offer what you need: a little bit more shooting, a little bit more scoring. I think he shot 39% last year from deep, so obviously you're going to need some of that. This isn't, and Dragic is actually a really good acquisition. It wasn't an offseason acquisition, but it's something to consider or look at, is Malachi Flynn. I really, from San Diego, I think that type of playmaking and the amount of, it's not necessarily going to leap off the screen. You're not going to look at a stat sheet like, wow, he just dropped 30 and 15. It's not going to do that, but those little things that he does to elevate the other positions, that's what's going to get you wins. And that's like what makes good players great players, or because of players like that. So I know that wasn't necessarily your question because it wasn't a signing
No,
right here.
I'm glad you brought him up because we got a chance to see him last year as a rookie.
Yeah.
And
Really
boy,
good.
is he aggressive defensively.
He's
My
good.
God. He
Yeah,
is
and
good.
Right. And that's a type of player where it's not the sexiest name. Obviously, a lot of people know about Gordon Dragic, Miami Heat, the bubble, the lefty, which is a really good acquisition to have. But a player like that flies under the radar are the players on the court who they appreciate the most, because they're going to put, he's a table setter. He's going to put people in positions to succeed. And you need that because what did we just talk about? Siakam's not a dual forward, but having a table setter like a Flynn allows him to thrive at the small forward position. Right there. Yeah.
Yeah. Flynn did a lot of good things too in summer league. I really enjoyed watching him go to work with Scottie Barnes. Mike, just to answer your question, I'm going to go to Goran Dragic. I know a lot of Raptors fans were coming at his neck for his comments, that, you know, what he said, but I think you got to put that in the past. You know, people overreacted to that. I think Dragic is the ultimate professional. He's going to come in, compete at a high level. I think he's going to be a true six-man on this Raptors team. And like Max said, you know, with Malachi Flynn, I think Dragic is going to help those younger second bench units kind of ease into it. You know, Malachi Flynn, Precious Ochoa, Chris Boucher, like you mentioned, Mike. He's going to really be Scottie Barnes. He's really going to be that veteran leader and that catalyst that can, you know, really rally those guys. And I think the Raptors are going to have a very underrated second unit. And do a lot of good things. And of course, Dragic can still provide that lethal shooting. He torched the Raptors so many times last season along with other teams. And he's a good playmaker. So I really think Dragic is going to come in and be a very impactful second unit player for the Toronto Raptors. I really liked that acquisition and the deal.
Now, guys, just a couple more questions before we get out of here. The first question I'm going to ask is what your expectations are for this team this season. I'm going to go to Max first. But here's the thing. The Eastern Conference these last couple of years has gotten better. And Toronto is now in a place where, okay, you lose some of the guys that you've had, and you have some veterans on your team, but you're young. But you're looking at a Brooklyn, you're looking at a Milwaukee, you're looking at a Boston, you're looking at a Philadelphia, you're looking at a Chicago who's gotten better.
Atlanta.
And the scary
Don't.
hold on, and I'm just coming to that. And the scary part is, I did that on purpose.
I know.
I don't even mention an Atlanta Hawks with a team who's probably not even close to hitting their stride.
No.
With a guy who's not even close to hitting his prime, who's absolutely frightening. Like, Lord have mercy. I mean, the East is going to be getting tough.
Loaded.
And the fact that you're going to have to be dealing, especially I mentioned these other teams with veterans, but when you have a team like the Hawks, who for God's sakes, Luca, we're going to have to deal with these guys for God knows how long at this point. I mean, it's going to be rough. It's going to be rough. Max, where do you see the Raptors landing overall in the Eastern Conference at this point? I know it's kind of early for that. Like, you don't have to give specifics, but I mean, what kind of range do you see them in?
Well, I'll say you don't have to have an NBA championship to have an incredible season or to move the needle for your team. And I'll use the Knicks as an example. So what did the Knicks lost the Atlanta Hawks, but we're deeming that season as an incredible season, a very successful season because of what they've been able to establish, a culture and a brand. So I think Toronto needs to reestablish who they are in a direction moving forward. And that's the most important thing. Instead of having questions, have more answers. But that being said, they need to have a playoff push. And I'm not expecting them to beat a Brooklyn. I'm not expecting them to beat an Atlanta or a Milwaukee per se. But I think they have enough talent, enough role players, enough veterans, a combination with the young players to have a playoff push. The East, I think this is the most challenging the East has been in a really, really long time. And so you don't have to win the Eastern Conference to have a huge impact going forward for your team. So if they can establish an identity and an understanding of who they are with a playoff push, I would deem that as a successful season.
Rashad?
I think it would be a miracle if Toronto makes the playoffs.
Wow.
Love it.
I'll put that out there. If Toronto makes the playoffs this year, it would be a miracle. And it will be because of the play of Pascal and Van Fleet and OG Anunoby. It'd be because of those three guys. When you play the Toronto Raptors this year, this won't be a walk in the park for any team, because they have guys on that team that compete every possession. Toronto Fred is a guy, like, this guy's undrafted, comes from a mid-major school. Those are the type of dudes that you just don't want to see in a dark alley. Like, that's just who he is. And then you got Pascal, who I think has a bigger chip on his shoulder than he did before. Malachi Flynn, who we all love, he was the best pick and roll point guard in the draft when he came out, comes from a mid-major background as well. There's some dogs on the Toronto team, okay, first and foremost. So it's not one of those, there's teams where you'd be like, oh, we flying into town, we got this team. Yeah, it's going to be pretty easy. When you fly to play the Toronto Raptors, or when the Raptors come in town to play you, you better get you some sleep. So that's what I'm saying, and that's what I'm looking forward to, is how they battle against the top tier teams. How do they fare against a Brooklyn? How do they fare against Atlanta? How do they fare against Miami? That's what I'm looking at.
Now, Luca, before you say anything, when Rashad said it would be a miracle, I saw you licking those chops. You had a problem with that? What's going on?
Luca got mad at me, man.
Let's go, Luca. What you got for us? Where do you see these guys?
It sunk a little bit. No, but I appreciate you recognizing that this Raptors team, they fight hard every single game. They rarely get blown out. They could be going up against, the Lakers, the Nets. They're going to be right there in the thick of things till the very end. And I mean, last season, their season got dismantled with the C word. I can't say it for YouTube purposes or else they're going to demonetize us, but they literally rolled out so many different lineups shorthanded, and they were still able to have a chance. So how do I see the Raptors going to this season? I'm going to put it like this. I think they're going to be in the play-in tournament, whether it's 7, 8, 9, 10. I think they're going to have a chance to get into the actual playoffs. I think this team is going to be a lot better than they were a season ago if they can remain healthy. If Siakam can come back from that surgery and play at a high level, like Rashad said, OG, can he take that next step? Fred VanVleet. I think being back at home is going to be a big morale boost for this team. I've seen this team play at home since I was a kid. They just thrive under that home energy, and I think that's really going to make a difference for them in a lot of those tight games, down to the wire games that they can potentially win. So I think the Raptors are going to be great defensively. The one area of big concern that I do have that I need to see more out of them is the offensive side of things, late in games, their execution, who's going to step up, make a big play, take that big shot. That's what I need to see more from them to be more confident. But ultimately, I think the Raptors are going to play hard every single night. They're going to have a chance to win a lot of these games. And yeah, I see them in that play-in tournament with a chance to get in. So if that happens, that'd be a really good season in my book.
Luca, is there anything you want to ask these two before we get out of here?
I just want to shout them out. I think, whether it's NBA Twitter, NBA YouTube, NBA Instagram, like you mentioned it before, Mike, there's a lot of content that goes out there. And I feel like with everybody having their platforms, it's great. But with that, there's a loss of credibility. And sometimes people can say things and the masses believe them just because they have a big following. Whereas you bring two solid basketball minds on this show, and even though you might not agree with everything they have to say, they know their stuff. These are guys that have been around the game for so many years. And Rashad, you personally, you're probably my favorite follow on Twitter.
Thank you.
The way you break down things.
Max, you're up there too.
And Max, I'm going to follow you after the show. The way you simplify the game, I think it goes unnoticed, and a lot more people have to, check these guys out, because this is an example of good content, good information that's out there, that's credible, that you can learn something from, and that you can fall back on. So I appreciate both of you taking the time out of your busy schedule and joining us on this show to cover a team that Mike and I follow closely, being from the Toronto area, the Toronto Raptors. So it was great to hear your perspective on all of this.
Yeah, man, I absolutely agree with you, Luca, and real recognize real, because I learned about Max through RASHAD, right? So it's like you say, one basketball great mind will understand another one, right?
Mhm.
So what I want to know is, before we get out of here, like, RASHAD, and then I'll come to you, Max. RASHAD, where can we find more of your stuff online?
Yeah, I can be reached on Twitter, RP3 Natural, or Instagram, RASHAD PHILLIPS 2319. And we have our own website, which is sportstalk2319.com. There you can get all of our material from our draft shows, our articles, and all the stuff we do in the media. Max leads our media team. So you want to follow a lot of our NBA stuff on the ground floor. Max has interviews with Giannis, Trae Young. I mean, the list goes on, the people that he's been able to, come in contact with. So yeah, that's where you can kind of, reach us at.
Awesome. Max?
First of all, thank you guys as well for the kind words and having us on your platform, and Luca, especially the kind words, and Mike. So my name is my brand, so I try to make it as simple as possible because my last name is a little unique. So Van Auken. So Max Van Auken is on Instagram. It's on Twitter. You type that into YouTube. You type that into any podcast platform, and you could see me there. So literally, whatever you want to do, you can type into Google and type in my name, and hopefully everything that I associate myself with is on there. Sports Talk 2319. So type in my name, and you should be good to go.
Appreciate it. Luca, where can we find you?
Yeah, same as Max. My name is my username everywhere, Twitter, YouTube, on TikTok as well. And we'll put all the links down below for everybody to follow.
Awesome, man. And I am Mike Roach at Micro7 on Instagram, Mike_Roach_ on Twitter. And thank God the NBA is on its way back. I will be courtside next week for the exhibition game, and I have no idea who we're playing, but I'll be courtside for the first time in like a year and a half. So I'm just pumped to be back in the stadium, get to see my guys, the coaches again, some of my boys on the squad. I'm really looking forward to that. But to reiterate some of the words that Luca said before, thank you guys so much for taking the time to come on the show. Two wonderful basketball minds, two of the best that I see online. And I'm proud you guys came onto the show for the T-Dot area in Canada. This is a breakdown that is unlike any other one. Literally is unlike any other breakdown that you're going to hear. So thank you guys so much. Peace, and we out.